This is a great time to be a Catholic, isn't it? All the attention of the... Yeah. In a few weeks, we went from Easter Monday, the passing of Pope Francis, to his eternal reward, and all the world's looking and watching how we're going to bury a pope. And then we go into the conclave and the preparation for the conclave, and Archbishop Sample and I think we did at least a dozen interviews, and it was just hard for the reporters to get it around their head. This isn't like an election, like a political election. We do this differently in the church. It's like, what does the church need? What are the gifts we need in a leader? And then it becomes very quickly evident there are a few people who are in that niche. And then, of course, much to our stunned surprise, we get somebody born on the south side of Chicago. Yeah, he was born in Bronzeville, which is an industrial district on the south side of Chicago. He gets elected pope. You know, we were all just, I had to eat my words because I gave a couple of presentations on the conclave, and inevitably people say, will an American cardinal get elected? Not a chance. Not while the U.S. is a superpower. And of course, we weren't thinking about Prevost, because he spent almost all his priestly life outside of the church, outside of the United States. And then, of course, he's elected on 4 ballots, which is just amazing. And then, of course, everybody wants to know all about him. And it's amazing the witness effect that that's had. So earlier this week, I was at my dentist getting my however month long, whatever it was, checkup. So I was fine, and at the end of it, the dentist, who's not Catholic, says, so, how about that American Pope? By the way, anybody here from Peru? Peruvians claim him as their own as well, by the way. They say, this guy spent like 30 years or 25 years ministering in Peru. He's our guy too. And so he has Peruvian citizenship as well as his U.S. citizenship. But he wanted to talk about it, so we chatted for about 5 minutes, and his dental hygienist is there. Neither of them are Catholic. But they're all asking questions. They're curious, what does this mean? And by the way, I got to tell you, the memes are hilarious. One of the first ones was a picture of him giving the blessing, saying, Pope Leo decrees that henceforth all pizza will be Chicago style. And another one was, anybody who calls a sauce gravy will be excommunicated. Any of you remember the movie The Blues Brothers? Yeah. Oh, I'm shocked. Not many of you know that. Some of you do. Yeah. We're on a mission from God. The memes about that. We're on a mission from God, and the Blues Brothers Pope-mobile and all of this. And just to show you what the Holy Spirit does in preparing things, a video clip surfaced of him in Game 1 of the 2005 World Series at Comiskey Park in Chicago. The White Sox actually won the World Series then. Cubs fans don't like to talk about it because the White Sox beat them to it. But you know how the camera pans the crowd and they just stop on somebody for a few seconds and then move on? He was one of the guys they stopped on. And there's this picture of him. He's standing there he's got his White Sox jersey on, and they've now put a mural up there. On this date, then Father Robert Prevost was watching this game. Now, of course, the White Sox fans are all claiming him as their own. His jersey is outselling all of the other players. Of course, having him as a fan is not going to help them. They got one of the worst records in baseball, I'm told. But it's just a great moment for us as Catholics. People are interested. Google searches for how to become Catholic went up 33% after his election. So things are happening. This year we've had more people join the church than we've ever had before since we've been keeping records. Numbers for confirmations are up. The Holy Spirit is at work. So this is just a wonderful time. We don't see this news broadcast, but when you look for it, it's there. God is at work in the midst of everything else going on. Today we celebrate the Ascension, and most of the United States is transferred from Ascension Thursday to Sunday. But you have the words of Jesus. When Jesus ascends to the Father, what does he say? One of the things he says to them, You will be my witnesses in Judea, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. Witnesses. So who are those witnesses today? Who are those witnesses today? We are. We are. And we're here because people were witnesses down through the centuries and millennia. So what does a witness do? Think about it. What does a witness do? Come on, people, this isn't hard. What does a witness do? They testify, yes, and they testify mainly to three things, which are what they have seen, heard, and experienced. That's what a witness does. Testify to what they've seen, heard, and experienced. And now, when we think of witnesses, what do we think of? Come on, there have got to be lawyers in this parish. Court cases, yes, we think of a witness testifying in court. Actually, I got called up for jury duty earlier this year. And when I was a pastor, I know I was never able to go, but now that I'm no longer pastoring a parish, I can make it work. I go every time. I love it. I walk in there wearing my clerics and pectoral cross, and it's amazing how people react. You know, this time I had a guy walk up and say, "Good morning, Your Grace." And I was like, "Who's this guy?" He's a Protestant pastor who lives next to the Franciscan Sisters in Bridal Veil, their mother house there. So he and I hung out for a lot, but you get all these people. Some people look at you like they want to do something bad to you. Others are like, they just don't know how to relate to you. Others just want to tell you their life story and their problems, you know, and others are just friendly. It's a great opportunity to be a witness in that setting. I never get selected for a jury. I did get pulled in once and thrown out immediately because I have 2 law degrees, a canon law degree and a civil law degree, and I know one of the current U.S. Supreme Court justices, and one of my classmates from law school in South Africa is on the South African equivalent of the Supreme Court. So they look at me and say, "Get him out of here now. We don't want this guy anywhere near our juries." But it's an opportunity to be a witness, and that's what I was earlier this year. You and I are witnesses every day of our lives. Every single day. Think about it. The witness testifies to what they have seen, what they have heard, what they experience. We do that all the time. You go home from work, your husband or your wife asks, "How was work today?" We tell them. You come home from school, your family asks, "What happened at school?" We tell them. What happened on your sports team? We tell them. If we have good news, we tell them. If we're struggling, we tell people. We do it all the time. We testify to what we have seen, what we have heard, and what we experience. So this isn't something that's impossible or just for a few. Jesus is saying, take what is normal for our lives and use it to tell others about Him, to be witnesses for Him in the world. That's what He tells the apostles and disciples, and that message is for us today, to be His witnesses. Now, did the apostles and disciples all run out and go and be His witnesses as soon as Jesus said that? Did they? No, they didn't. They went and hung out in Jerusalem, kept a real low profile. What changed that? What changed that? The Holy Spirit coming upon them at Pentecost. The Holy Spirit came upon the assembled apostles and disciples, and they were changed people. They were changed men and women, and they went out and began to be witnesses for Jesus. And who leads the way? Yeah, St. Peter. He leads the way. This is the guy who tells Jesus, "You can't go to Jerusalem and die." He denies Jesus 3 times during His passion and death. And here he is leading the way fearlessly. This is some of the change that happens. And empowered by the Holy Spirit, the apostles and disciples begin to live as Jesus called them to, serve as Jesus served, and be His witnesses. So what does the Holy Spirit do individually for you and I in a moment like that? As the scriptures remind us, when we are baptized in the Spirit or receive the Holy Spirit in a deeper way. Jesus ascends to the Father and he says, I'll send you another advocate, the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit makes Christ come alive within us in a much deeper way. That's why Jesus says, let your light so shine before others. It's not our light. It's the light of Jesus within us. Because the reality is, no matter how good we are, no matter how smart we are, no matter how much we've achieved, no matter what we're worth, it is nothing before the awesomeness of God, if you're going to compare it. It is nothing. And so the Holy Spirit helps the life of Christ burn ever more brightly within us. And he equips us to do what Jesus did. You go back and look at the Gospels and you see what Jesus did. Jesus heals the sick. He performs miracles. He raises people from the dead. He casts out Satan and evil spirits from people and sets them free. And he proclaims the gospel. When you look at the Acts of the Apostles, which we've had as the first reading all the way through the Easter season, we see the Holy Spirit doing the same things with the apostles and disciples. They heal the sick, they perform miracles, they raise people from the dead, they proclaim the good news, and what else do they do? Cast out evil spirits. They do it all. The Holy Spirit in them does this as they continue the life and mission and ministry of Jesus in this world by being his witnesses. So because God offers you this gift, does that mean it automatically happens? No, it doesn't. Because God, from the very beginning, in creation and to our very first human ancestors, gave us another wonderful gift. Freedom. He gave our very first human ancestors freedom. How'd that work out? Not so well, yeah. But that's why Christ came into our world, lived our life, took on all the sin of the world upon himself, and in his passion, death, and resurrection, broke the effects of sin and death on our lives and offered us the possibility of new life with God if we choose to accept it. That's the freedom. So God offers us this gift, the Holy Spirit, in a deeper way. But we choose what happens. In a few minutes, yes, I'll pray the prayers over you. I'll anoint you. But what happens next is between you and God. I can't make it happen. Father John or Deacon Kevin can't make it happen. Nobody can make it happen. It's between you and God. Because God has given us this freedom. And God has given us this freedom because he wants us to follow him out of love, friendship, and affection. Not as a bunch of mindless zombies, automatons, or robots. The fullness of that is what Jesus says to the apostles at the Last Supper. I no longer call you servants, I call you friends. But that's the gift that is offered to us, and we decide what happens with that gift. So God can offer the gift, but the next thing is that we have to accept it and choose to allow it to take hold in our lives. And that's up to you. That's up to you. And being a witness is very practical in this world. We may think this is such a difficult thing. No, it isn't. Think about all the things that we're witnesses for. And being witnesses for the Lord, witnesses for Jesus Christ, it's just like that, except we're witnessing to this particular reality of our lives. Here's an example. So I'm part of a community, and one of the things our community does is campus outreaches, and this story happened at the University of Minnesota, which would give Portland State a run for its money with all the various human and subhuman life forms that populate a campus like that. That's pretty, yeah, anyhow, you get the picture. So we had about 18 students who were part of our outreach and on campus, and they wanted to do something. So what we did is we took over a fraternity house. The fraternity had been dissolved and gone. So we took over this house, rented it. It was 3 floors. On the top floor, we had the guys live. The middle floor, the girls lived. No men on the women's floor or vice versa. And on the ground floor, we had the kitchen, the dining room, the common space, the chapel, meeting rooms, and so on. So these students began to live a pattern of life together, doing morning and evening prayer together, dinners together, doing other sort of evangelistic or apostolic things out of this house. So one evening, there's a knock on the door. And they open the door, and here's this guy standing there, pretty barrel-chested guy like this, about 5'10", big red beard. His name is Russ. And Russ was an interesting character. It turns out Russ had been raised, to say he came from a dysfunctional family would have been an extremely good and positive description of what his childhood was like. It was awful. And he was raised with no faith at all, and he had come to campus to try and make something of his life. And he bumped into this fraternity, and the fraternity, at least, he experienced some sense of connection and belonging. And because of all the rejection that he'd had in his life, he became a recruiter for this fraternity. That's why he knocked on the door. And because of all the rejection he'd experienced, he was pretty immune to people rejecting him when he talked to them about something. So he saw all these guys going in there, and he thought, gonna go recruit some of those guys. So they said, well, you know, we're this is who we are. We're about to do evening prayer and dinner. You're welcome to join us if you want. So Russ comes in, joins them for evening prayer and dinner, helps them clean up, and then just hangs out, shooting the breeze with them all through the evening until 10 o'clock or whenever it was. And then as he was leaving, he said, "Can I come back?" And they said, "You're welcome to come back anytime." Russ was blown away by what he experienced that evening. He'd never seen or experienced anything like it. He didn't quite know what it was. But looking back, he said what he experienced was a real joy in the life of these young men and women. And the way they treated one another respectfully, kindly, the way they helped one another, served one another, it was just very different, and it drew him like a moth to a flame. So Russ kept coming back, and about a month later, he ditched the fraternity and moved in with these guys. And while he was there, he began to realize what he was missing, and they prayed with him so that he would experience, and he did, what we talk about here in the Archdiocese. We want every Catholic to have a life-giving, ongoing, transformative, personal relationship with God. And that's what Russ experienced, along with the empowering of the Holy Spirit. And Russ became just as fearless a witness for Jesus Christ and the gospel and the faith as he had been recruiting for the fraternity. Some of the stuff he did on campus was just amazing. He graduates and decides, okay, now what am I going to do? So I have to decide what comes next. And he prayed and discerned it, and we had outreaches where we have young people and young families living in poor neighborhoods of cities in this country. And we don't drive in and do stuff. We buy or rent places, and then they go and live there. You've got to be careful. It's pretty dangerous in some of them. But they're witnesses. They're living witnesses to their faith. And in some of those places, this is the first time that young people have seen an intact family with a husband and wife who love each other and how they take care of their kids. Has a profound effect on people's lives, just seeing this lived out. That's the most powerful witness we can have. It's easy to talk the talk, but when people see us living out what we say, that takes it to a whole different quantum level. So after doing that for a number of years, Russ discerned, okay, now I need to sort of move on with my life. God's calling me to do something different. So he went and learned to become a furniture maker and came back to one of those cities and the place where those folks were, and he set up his own furniture making shop. And he hires, whenever he can, men who have been released from prison, guys who can't get jobs elsewhere. He teaches them a skill, and for them, they encounter the witness effect of others living a life of faith that brings so much healing to them and gives them real hope. There's a witness in action. About 18 months ago, he got married. I haven't heard much since then. But he's still doing all that, running his shop and working with these people. We are all called to be witnesses. And God gives us the means to do that. The gift of the Holy Spirit in a deeper way in our lives that makes Christ come alive within us and gives us what we need, that we too can be his light in this world. In the few moments silence that we have now before we move to the rite of confirmation, I invite each of you who are to be confirmed. Ask God for what you want to receive with the gift of the Holy Spirit in the sacrament of confirmation. And be real. Don't pray, Lord, help me to be a better person. Everyone wants to be a better person, unless you're absolutely nuts. But be specific. Lord, I need your Holy Spirit in my life for this reason. Ask God, give him permission to work in those areas of your life. God is offering you this gift. How will you choose to respond?